Hi, welcome to A Redeemed Failure. I'm Rex Gray. I'm your host and guide through this video series as we explore issues around Jesus, Christianity, religion. Um, this is designed for people who are seeking a closer walk with Jesus, or maybe you just want to explore ideas around Christianity, who Jesus is, or maybe you've been hurt by church, or maybe you're sick and tired of religion. Well, join the club. I am too. These videos are meant to be short, uh, 10 to 15 minutes or less, because I find that people that if you've got to listen to me talk for 30 or 40 minutes, you're going to get bored, turn it off. So I want to make it short and may make more videos this way, but to cover a subject. But I think it'll be better in the long run to do it this way. So as I said in the last video, these are not slick and polished, and I'm just going to share with you from my heart, from what I've learned. And one of the first things I would like to do is kind of share with you my story. One of my favorite Bible teachers is a man by the name of Steve Brown. He has a ministry called Key Life. You can hear him on the radio or pick him up on the internet. Great teacher. And one of the things he is common to say, likes to say a lot, is that he believes anyone who writes a Christian book should begin by confessing his sins. And not a bad idea. In fact, one of the greatest books in Christian history was written by St. Augustine, called Confessions, in which he is very brutally honest about who he was and even the things he struggles with as a follower of Jesus. And so I'm not going to get down and dirty and all as far as give you a lot of graphic detail about my past, but I just kind of want to let you know where I'm coming from and tell you how I got to where I am today. I was born in 1960, so I'm almost 57, will be in August. Grew up in church. My parents brought us up in church. My parents are still married, and so I had a steady home life. The church background that I grew up in early on was Southern Baptist, and then when we moved, 9 years old, we moved out to West Texas, and we joined what is now known as an Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. And Independent Fundamental Baptist is primarily known for, among other things, in their past especially, and some churches are still very strict this way, as far as having a lot of rules, a lot of guidelines. They would call them standards. The idea was that you were to be not of the world, and so you would set yourself apart. And so you had to wear your hair a certain way. If you're a man, it couldn't be beyond a certain length. Depending on which church you were a part of or where the church was and the pastor who led the church, facial hair may or may not be okay. Women were always expected to wear dresses. Pants were generally forbidden. The only translation of the Bible in English that you were supposed to use was the King James Version. And there was a lot of Bible teaching, which was good, because of the raising that I had in that church background. I learned to use the Bible as my source. And so, and it is in fact the using of that Bible that helped me come to where I am today. And but I also grew up with a sense of feeling like I had to please God in order to be accepted by Him. One of the things that a lot of evangelical, especially conservative evangelical churches teach is that we are saved by grace. And if you don't quite understand what that means that God saves us by His power and not anything of our own. And we'll discuss that more when we deal with the sessions on the gospel. But that we are saved by Him, but that after that point, even though we're saved by Him and we will be kept by Him, it's up to us to live a life that he is pleased with. And so anything that we do that's not pleasing, anything that we do that's sin, makes him displeased with us. We're in the flesh, we're carnal. So that leads to a life of frustration, especially if you're desired to be pleasing, which I did. And it leads to a lot of people just giving up because they're so frustrated and they're so stymied by the rules that they cannot feel like God's ever happy with them. I have a t-shirt that says, religion sets rules, but Jesus sets free. And that's the problem with religion. Even if it's in Christian churches, they can be very religious and not focused on Jesus as much because they're more concerned with how you live and how you obey their rules than they are about your relationship necessarily with God, because they believe the rules equals relationship. And so when you don't follow the rules, you feel like God's not happy with you. You feel like God's rejecting you. And this comes because we have a faulty understanding of who our Father is. We measure him by our earthly fathers who, although they may be great in some cases, as my dad is, they're human beings. They're flawed. But God is a perfect Father, and he is not up there judging his children because Christ took judgment in himself on their behalf. But yet, this is how I grew up, and it led to frustration. And I still struggle with it, even after I've come to understand that my Father loves me and likes me. But this religious, legalistic mindset it totally engrosses us and infects us. And you may be, I hear what you're saying, Rex. I've been there. I've been through that. I'm still struggling with that. And so this is how I grew up. I entered into the ministry at the age of 22. I began pastoring a church when I was 24, still struggling with that and teaching it even, that we had to follow rules in order to be pleasing to God. And because one of the things that religion and legalism works with the human's default mechanism of self-righteousness. We want to be able to measure ourselves against other people. We want to be able to say, hey, I am a lot better than this person here because I don't do X, Y, or Z. And the Bible in Romans chapter 2 goes after people like that, and it tells us, who are you to say that you don't do these evil things when you actually do them and you condone them? And hopefully someday, as these videos go on, we'll go through Romans and talk about how that book lays out the need for the gospel and how the gospel saves us and keeps us. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful study. But going back to my story, I struggled with this through my years, and I coped with it in different ways, and with my guilt and my shame, because I knew I couldn't measure up. And when we don't feel like we measure up, we feel shame, we feel discouraged. And let me just share with you also, when you feel shame, I want you to understand that doesn't come from God. Shame is a result of our own hatred of ourselves and of what we've done, our own hatred of sin, and so therefore we feel shame. God doesn't ever shame us. God says, I sent my son to die for you. I sent him to take on all the pain and the sin and the guilt and the shame. I love you. You're my child. And I just want you to walk with me. And so we get away from, God says that he wants to deliver us from shame. And so, but yet shame keeps us, and we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, and either those people who are doing better than we think we should be doing. We feel like we're inferior to them. Or if we look at somebody else who's worse than we are, we think we're better than them. You know, I would hear men all the time come to church or come to seminary where I was going to school and talk about how they began their prayer day at 4 a.m. and they would pray for 2 or 3 hours a day. And every time I would try doing that, I thought, man, I have to do that to be spiritual. I have to do that to be growing in Christ. And I would fail miserably. I would invariably fall asleep by, I would say, probably 5 to 10 minutes. And then I would be upset because I fell asleep. And then I would say, God, forgive me for falling asleep. And I would go through this cycle of shame and guilt and feeling like I didn't measure up. But what I've learned is that Christ took on my guilt and my shame. Christ took my sin. And that I don't have to walk in that. I have been adopted into the family of God. If you have believed the gospel, if you have put your faith in Christ's death and resurrection on your behalf, you are adopted into God's family. You're a child, a son, a daughter of God. And he doesn't shame you. He sees you as his child and he loves you. And he just says, follow my son. Look to Jesus. Love me. And I will teach you how to love people. So my prayer request now has become, Father, teach me how to love you. I know I don't do it perfectly, but I thank you that Jesus did it all perfectly on my behalf. So I ask you to teach me to love you so that I can love others the way that I want to be loved and that I am loved by you. Because when we learn how much we're loved by God, then we can go out and learn to love others. So if you're trapped in religion and trying to perform and trying to think you've got to do X, Y, Z, you've got a checklist of things you've got to do in order for God to be happy with you, you need to wad that up and throw it away. Because your Father doesn't have a checklist looking at your life. Jesus fulfilled all the requirements of righteousness on your behalf. Jesus died in your place. Jesus lives so that you can have not only a life hereafter with him, but life right now that is abundant life. So that we can be representatives of his kingdom. So that we can go out and spread the message that God has reconciled man to himself through his son Jesus. That's my message for you today. We'll continue this more, and I'll tell you more about my story as we go along, but I thank you for being here. I'll have links to my Facebook, Twitter account, as well as my blog. I welcome questions. I welcome comments, whether good, bad, or otherwise. And I thank you for listening and being here today. And may the Lord bless you, and we'll put up another video very soon.